manager for the New York Sun team, and I would just like to take a moment and say thank you for attending our workshop this afternoon on the Expanded Solar for All program. So today I will be presenting on the proposed program, Expanded Solar for All, which is a program that would provide over 160,000 National Grid EAP customers with additional utility bill assistance using community solar. How today will work is I'll be giving a presentation, and then we will have a good amount of time for Q&A so that attendees on this call can have any questions answered about the program. And today's meeting is really an opportunity for individuals and organizations that are working directly with EAP customers, with these types of customers, to learn about this proposed program and have any of your questions answered. So thank you so much for taking the time today. So why don't we go to the next slide, please? So I'm going to take a moment and talk about the meeting procedures. So everyone who's an attendee has been muted except for the presenter. And today's webinar will be recorded, and a copy of the recording and the presentation slides will be posted to the New York Sun Resources for Contractors page, which is a page on the NYSERDA website. We're also going to be sending out an email to all registered attendees following this presentation in about 5 to 7 business days, with the link to the recording and the presentation slides on that webpage. So everybody, as I said before, is muted for this presentation. If you want to submit questions, there are 2 ways to do it. Basically, if you want to, anybody can submit questions through the Q&A feature. The questions will be monitored and answered at the end of the presentation. If you'd like to say your question verbally, if you want to be able to say it verbally versus just writing it out to us, indicate when you send your question through the Q&A feature that you would like to ask your question verbally. So to do so, just put in parentheses request to speak at the end of your question, and somebody from our side will reach out to you and ask for clarification on the question. And each commenter who's selected to ask their question verbally, you'll have 2 minutes to ask that question. And then the last thing I'll say on this slide, if any technical problems arise, feel free to contact my colleague, Dylan Cunningham. His email is right on the screen. Next slide, please. So for today's presentation, as I mentioned before, we're doing an overview of this proposed Expanded Solar for All program. And then what I'll do is I'll talk about this program and how it will benefit the customer and how the customer will experience the features of the program. Then, as I mentioned before, this is a proposed program. This is actually a program that we've proposed to the Public Service Commission. We filed it with DPS. So I wanted to let everybody know what the timeline is on that proposal, and then also to give you some information on how to submit comments. And then after the speaking portion of the presentation, which I will be doing, we will then end with a Q&A where you can write in your questions using the Q&A feature, and you can indicate if you would like to actually say that question verbally. Next slide, please. Great. So to kick things off, I wanted to provide an overview of this program that we're talking about today called Expanded Solar for All. It is a proposed program being jointly proposed by NYSERDA and National Grid to provide all of National Grid's electric customers that are enrolled in the Energy Affordability Program, which is National Grid's low income bill discount program. I think most people on this call know that as EAP. The program is proposing to enroll all of these customers in bill savings from community solar. So these EAP customers would receive this bill savings with no additional application or verification required because they've already had to go through that process to sign up for HEAP. And then we know that those HEAP customers are also receiving EAP. And the customers who would receive this additional bill assistance from Community Solar as long as they are enrolled in the EAP. So they don't have to worry about a re-verification process or reapplication process for this program for Expanded Solar for All, as long as they're enrolled in EAP. The bill savings would be up to $10 a month of additional utility bill assistance. And we would be providing this to all of the electric customers enrolled in EAP in National Grid territory in New York State. And that is about 163,000 households in the state of New York. What this would look like in terms of the amount of solar that will be dedicated to this program, it's around 600 megawatts of solar in the upstate National Grid territory that will be directly dedicated to providing bill savings for low-income customers. And then National Grid will be taking a 1% administrative fee just for the process of managing the projects and making sure that the credits get allocated to customers. And we wanted to be transparent about kind of what the National Grid piece of this is, because it's actually the same administrative fee that they currently take for market rate community solar. So this is not something where National Grid is going to make money off of this program or this project. They're just taking the same administrative fee that they take just to do market rate community solar net crediting. So next slide, please. So I wanted to take a moment and just talk about what community solar is and why we're using community solar to provide this bill assistance. So community solar, if you haven't heard of it, is just a way for anybody to benefit from solar energy, even if they can't put panels on their roof. So if you live in an apartment or you don't have access to your roof, or if you maybe have a lot of tree cover, community solar is a great way to access the benefits of solar energy without having to do an installation on your own property. So market rate customers can subscribe to a community solar project, pay a subscription fee, and then they get significant savings from signing up for community solar. So the way that it works is that panels are installed at an off-site location, and customers can subscribe to receive a share of energy dedicated or generated by that off-site solar array. And as I mentioned, usually you have to pay a subscription fee, but then the savings is a minimum 5% savings in the state of New York to once you sign up for community solar. And community solar is available to any customer who pays an electric bill in New York State. And so what Expanded Solar for All is doing is we're using community solar, the mechanism of community solar, to actually provide bill assistance to upstate National Grid EAP customers. So these customers are not paying a subscription fee. They're just getting the credits that are generated from community solar projects. They're just getting them from community solar projects through this process. They don't have to pay anything. They're just getting them as assistance. So next slide, please. So how the Expanded Solar for All program will work, I touched on it a little bit in the previous slide, but National Grid electric customers that are receiving EAP are automatically enrolled. So they don't have to do anything to get this assistance. Community solar developers, so the companies that have developed these projects, can register their community solar projects to provide credits into this program. They would register to have their credits be provided to the program. National Grid would then pay the developers for the electricity produced by those community solar projects. And then this is where, this is where at that point, National Grid would then pool the credits and then evenly distribute them to each of the participating customer that's signed up for EAP. So National Grid's taking all the credits from all of the community solar projects that have signed up for this program, and they're putting them in a pool, and then they're evenly distributing them to each customer that's signed up for EAP. And then the customers would receive a fixed amount of savings each month, which would be clearly labeled on their electric bill. Next slide, please. So the reason why we're doing this program, why we're doing Expanded Solar for All, is that the National Grid low-income customers are just continue to be underserved by community solar. So what you see in this graph here is that there are about 1.5 million residential customers in National Grid territory. And of those 1.5 million customers, about 163,000 customers are EAP customers. They're customers that are participating in the energy affordability program. At the same time, you see that about 8,000 customers are enrolled in community solar. So even though you have over 160,000 customers enrolled in the energy affordability program, this offering, this product that guarantees savings, you're not seeing many of these customers taking advantage of community solar. And so if you go to the next slide, if you look at those 8,000 customers that are enrolled in community solar in the National Grid territory, we find that only about 12,000 of them are EAP customers that are participating in CDG. So about 12,000 or 1,200 of them, my apologies, 1,200 of them are EAP customers that are also enrolled in community solar. And so, we've done some analysis into why we think this is, and I'll be talking about that later in the presentation. But, what we did is in looking at these numbers, most of these participants are actually in NYSERDA Solar for All programs. So not many of these customers, EAP customers, are actually signing up for community solar. So next slide. So what are the features of the Expanded Solar for All program? One of the features is automatic enrollment. So currently the National Grid customers that sign up for the low income heating assistance program, we know this is LIHEAP, they have to go through an income verification process, and then they're also then get enrolled in the EAP program. So in the Expanded Solar for All program, these EAP customers would then be automatically enrolled into this new community solar program, Expanded Solar for All. The power of this, the importance of this, is that customers will be able to get this additional bill savings with no additional verification process or paperwork. So when we were doing work in our Solar for All program, that was something that customers really told us they wanted to participate in Solar for All. They just didn't want to do extra paperwork to get this additional savings. So this is just, customers don't have to take that extra step to get this additional bill savings from community solar. The other important feature that comes with automatic enrollment is that the integration with EAP offers customers a reassurance that the other benefits that they receive, so HEAP, Good Neighbor Fund, the utility bill allowance won't be impacted. This is something that we heard time and time again in our work at NYSERDA, that customers were interested in community solar, but they were worried that signing up for community solar could have an impact on their HEAP or could have an impact on their utility bill allowance and other assistance that they receive. But all of this will be taken care of on the back end by National Grid, so customers will have reassurance on knowing that there's not going to be an impact to the existing assistance that they have. Next slide, please. So another feature that we think is really beneficial for the customer is the reliable bill savings. So customers are going to be receiving a consistent dollar amount every single month on their bill from this program. And this actually differs from community solar because community solar actually has a variable bill credit. And so what I mean by that is community solar in the summer, you'll get more credits because there is more energy being generated by the solar project than in the winter when there's less energy being generated, and so the credit would be much smaller. So our customers for the original Solar for All program really told us that that variability caused them a lot of anxiety, and they really wanted, if they were going to have bill savings, going to have something that was consistent and the same dollar amount every single month. Many of them are on budget billing, as you all know. They want to know how much money they are paying every month for their electricity and how much money they're saving every single month for their electricity. So having a consistent dollar amount every month is just very, very important. So what we're targeting is a $10 per month savings, which is equivalent to 15% of the average EAP customer bill. And it will be a distinct line item that will be added to the customer bill that shows them that this savings is coming from the expanded Solar for All program. So can you go to the next slide? All right, and you can see right here the call out of how that could look. I will say this is a rendering, so it won't necessarily look like this in the final form, but we wanted to give everybody on the call just an understanding of, you know, our goal to really make this transparent and easy to understand for the customer. All right, next slide, please. So, you know, I mentioned this in the previous slide that we're targeting $10 a month as the savings that a customer will get as part of this program. But I just wanted to be transparent that that savings will ramp up over time based on the amount of solar that signs up for the program. So in the very beginning, you know, we think that that dollar amount will be a little bit smaller, around $3 a month. But then as more community solar projects sign up to participate in the expanded Solar for All program, that number is going to increase until we reach the 600 megawatts. And then once we hit those 600 megawatts, the customers will receive the $10 a month, and they'll receive that $10 a month as long as they're enrolled in the energy affordability program. Next slide, please. So another really important feature that I just wanted to highlight is that the expanded Solar for All program is going to be, you know, working with the Customer Advocate Network, National Grid's Customer Advocate Network, and the Community Energy Engagement Program at NYSERDA to really get the word out about expanded Solar for All, to really make sure that the customer knows what this additional line item on the bill would be, understands it, and understands how it integrates into the other bill savings that they have. All the program information and the marketing materials will integrate the messaging of the other National Grid bill savings programs, so HEAP and EAP. So this is really to help that customer understand that, you know, this program is saving you money. It's saving you money. It's coming from community solar. And it's really about, you know, removing those perceived barriers that, you know, that have limited low income participation in clean energy. So we're really going to be working very hard on making sure that the customers really understand what this program is, you know, before they start to receive the credits on their bill. All right, next slide. So I wanted to just take a moment and talk about how this interacts with other community solar. I mean, we have heard already some questions about how this program would interact with other community solar. So customers can only receive solar from one source in the state of New York per statewide regulations. So for example, if you have rooftop solar, you can't also sign up for community solar. And if you have community solar, you can't have multiple community solar subscriptions. You can only have one. So customers that are enrolled in this expanded Solar for All program would not be able to participate in another community solar project. I say this just to, oh, sorry, I'm just going to get a little water. So, we're not, the goal here is not to not kick anybody out of their existing rooftop solar or community solar subscription. We're just providing solar for people who don't already have it. So if an eligible customer already has rooftop solar or community solar, this customer will not be enrolled in expanded Solar for All. They can just keep their rooftop solar or their community solar subscription. And if a customer is enrolled in expanded Solar for All and they're receiving the credits, and then they decide that they want to maybe install solar on their roof, or they find another community solar subscription and they think that would be better for them, customers are not required to stay in this program. This is a program where people can unenroll at any time. So that customer can just unenroll in this program by contacting National Grid. Next slide. And then finally, we've had quite a few questions about how the expanded Solar for All program will interact with community choice aggregation. So for anybody who's on this call who has not, interacted with CCAs before, community choice aggregation programs allow local governments to procure energy supply services and distributed energy for the customers in their community. We see this be very popular and available to a lot of municipalities and counties in the state. So customers, similar or much connected to the slide that I had previously, where you can't get solar from more than one source, customers can either be enrolled in the expanded Solar for All program or in a CCA's opt-out community solar option. So some CCAs are offering opt-out community solar, and so a customer can only be enrolled in one. But that being said, a low-income customer, if they are enrolled in the expanded Solar for All program, they can participate in CCA's other offerings. So National Grid and NYSERDA have, in the petition, we've recommended that the low-income customer would be enrolled in whichever opt-out community solar program would provide the greatest cost savings to the customer. NYSERDA is very much, and National Grid and NYSERDA are very much in support of CCAs and encouraging municipalities to create locally tailored solutions that serve their needs and benefits and create benefits for their communities. So we, what expanded Solar for All is really doing, though, it's providing clean energy benefits to low-income customers whose municipalities may not be served by a CCA. So, we are in support of CCAs, and ESFA is really an opportunity for all low-income customers to get the benefit of community solar who would otherwise remain unserved. Next slide, please. So I wanted to take a moment to just talk about the next steps and what the petition timeline looks like, and also how to submit comments. Next slide. So we filed the petition in the spring, and the public comment period opened in June. And stakeholders have until August 22nd to submit a public comment. So, if you have any comments about this program, we encourage you to submit them, and that public comment period closes August 22nd, 2021. After the public comment period closes, it's really the decision of the Public Service Commission on what the program will look like, or if the program is approved. And we anticipate that that program will get looked at, or we'll hear something sometime 2021 or 2022. But we just wanted to let everybody know that the public comment period is open now, and it closes August 22nd, 2021. Next slide, please. And so if you are interested in submitting a public comment about this proposed program, and public comments are really instrumental in the Public Services Commission's decision on any program, so I highly encourage you to submit a public comment. You can just go to the link that's on this slide, and just submit before August 22nd. When we send out the email at the end with the slides and the recording, we will also send a link to this to the public comment page, so you can provide a public comment. Next slide. And with that, I would just like to thank everybody for attending the webinar today, and I think we are ready to do a little bit of Q&A. So just give us a minute. What we're going to do is I'm going to go on mute, and we're just going to start to look at this Q&A document and start to answer any questions.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me? Hopefully. I'm Wendy Fleischer, and I'm with Hester Street, which is working with NYSERDA on community engagement in a variety of ways. I'm here with my fabulous teammates, Casey Peterson, Ryan Westerfall, and Michael Perles, who you will meet Casey in a moment. Just want to recap about how the Q&A is going to work. Folks have been putting questions into the Q&A chat. We will be calling on you if you put in your question or comment that you'd like to speak, a request to speak. So far, everyone's being very shy and we don't have speakers. So we'll also be reading the questions from the chat out loud. And also anyone who is on the phone and would like to participate by asking a question, just press *3 and we'll also address your questions. We'll cover as many questions as possible. We'll do it in 10-minute blocks, and after each 10-minute block, we'll give the folks from National Grid and NYSERDA a chance to respond, and then we'll start again with the next 10-minute block. If you do speak, please keep it to 2 minutes, and forgive me in advance for cutting you off after 2 minutes, just trying to be respectful of the full group. So I'm going to turn it over to Casey to read the first batch of questions.
Hi, everyone, and good afternoon. We've had a number of questions come in, so to keep it digestible, I think I'll read the first 3 and give National Grid a chance to respond. So the first question is, can a town CCA get credit for more than one solar project within a town, and can school solar count towards a CCA project or bid? The second question is about the 1% fee. The proposal submitted says the 1% fee is uncapped. Could you expand more on that? And a third question coming in is, where is the savings shown in terms of the line item on the bill? Someone commented that there's a very clear line item description for community solar savings. Can the same clear description be used for existing National Grid bills for community solar participants? So I'll turn it to National Grid for answers to that first block of questions.
Great, thank you, Casey. Hi, my name's Jason Small. I'm a lead engineer and new program developer at National Grid. Thanks, Sarah, for presenting that. Casey, that first question was the CCA question?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. So I have a little trouble understanding the question, but I will answer it as best I can. So if we go to a solar project that's on a school, say, that can certainly enter into the program and count towards that total of 600 megawatts. Several projects from a single town certainly can enroll in our program, and the credits generated by those projects will all be added to the pool and increase the bill credits for EAP customers. I think the CCA part of the question is throwing me off a little bit. So Patricia, I don't know if you can expand on that a little further down in the chat, but hopefully that answers most of your question. The 1% fee being uncapped, I think that was actually even directly quoted an answer from the petition further down. You know, the uncapped portion of it is just allows us some wiggle room to ensure that the costs of administering the program are covered. I will say one of the benefits of having a regulated entity administer a program like this is that there has to be full transparency between for what the costs are that will be incurred. So you'll have full visibility into how we're spending that money to administer the program. I will say we have gone through a cost estimation exercise, and we do have some experience with that level of 1% through the net crediting program. And we think the 1% is certainly enough to cover those costs. The other thing I'll say is that, you know, as you pulled that language out of the petition, you know, it said year to year, we could adjust that slightly higher to make up for costs incurred over that 1% in previous years. We would not then keep that adjustment in perpetuity. You know, as Sarah was saying, we expect the amount of capacity joined in the program to go up over time. And as it goes up, that 1% will rise with it. So as those costs become covered, we will return whatever money was used to cover the costs earlier in the program back to the customers later in the program. And then the third was where was the savings shown? And you know, I think Sarah gave a very good graphic of that in the presentation. It'll simply be a very simple line item that we will try to be as descriptive as possible. I think we showed it as community solar credit. And then, as she also said, we'll be working very hard with our EAP and customer outreach teams to give an explanation of what the program is, why we're doing it, what it means for them and their billing, and also a way to giving them the option to opt out of the program if they so choose. I'll even jump a little further down in the questioning. I think I saw somebody asked if there would be a fee for opting out of the program. There are no fees associated with opting in or out of the program to the customers. It is all free to them. So I think that covers those three, Casey.
Great, thank you. So moving on to the next block of questions. The first one is approximately how many National Grid New York customers are enrolled in EAP? And if we have a CDG project that can apply for the new LMI adder, can we sign up for this program and achieve 100% LMI subscription? And the third question is about how long do you expect it to take to reach 600 megawatts?
So I can answer most of those questions. Can you just repeat the first one, Casey?
Sure. Approximately how many National Grid New York customers are enrolled in EAP?
Yeah, so that's 163. It's around 163,000 customers. Let me just get to the actual slide where we say the exact amount. It's 163,100 enrolled in EAP that are National Grid Electric customers. So those are the customers that would be served under this program. And I just wanted to also reiterate that is out of 1.5 million customers in National Grid territory. So there are 1.5 million customers electric customers in National Grid territory, residential electric customers in National Grid territory, and the EAP customers is 163,102. So what was the next question, Casey?
The next question was, if we have a CDG project that can apply for the new LMI adder, can we sign up for this program and achieve 100% LMI subscription?
The answer is no. You can only do the Expanded Solar for All program or the Inclusive Community Solar Adder. You cannot do both.
Okay,
and then I think the last question was about how long it will take to achieve the 600 megawatts. I would love to call on my colleague, Luke Forster, if he's able to answer that question.
Hey, Sarah, Luke's here. Yeah, it will take some time to onboard 600 projects and then get those projects built. We currently have well over 1,000 megawatts of National Grid community solar projects in various stages of development. It typically takes anywhere from 2 to 2.5 years for these projects to get built. So we anticipate it'll take a while, at least a few years, to onboard these projects and get them all built and interconnected.
Great, so I think we can move to the next block of questions coming in. So the first is a clarification question, clarifying whether customers have to take an action to sign up for EAP, but then do not have to take an action in order to enroll in community solar. Is that correct? The second question is the ability to provide a fixed monthly credit unique to this utility program, or could CCAs also offer this through an opt-out CCA program theoretically? In other words, is this an advantage that a utility administrated program has? And the third question for this block is, how many megawatts of solar is currently available or under development in process in National Grid territory?
Yeah, I can take those. So for the action to sign up for EAP, so yes, customers do require verification of income status to join the EAP program. We've got a very well-established process for doing that. Our EAP team is also working very hard to identify customers who might be eligible for the EAP program and to bring them on board. So that number is constantly changing. And then once they're enrolled in the EAP program, if this program is approved, they will have no further action to join the ESFA. So that will be all automatically handled. What will happen is, as they get communications from the EAP program, they will also get a notification that they've been enrolled in this program, as I mentioned earlier, give them an idea of what the program is, why we're doing it, what it means for them and their bills, and then a very easy way to opt out, again, at no fee to them. For the second question, so I don't believe that the ability for the utility to offer a fixed monthly credit is unique to a regulated utility. It's certainly not an advantage that we have. Developers who offer CCAs certainly could do that if they chose, and we very specifically designed this program around that concept of fixed bill credits, and so I don't see any reason why it would not be able to be done by other community solar offerings. And then the third question was how much solar is currently enrolled in the queue at National Grid. Luke just answered that. The answer is roughly 1,000 megawatts currently in varying stages of development. I think that's it, Casey.
Okay, so we actually have one speaker, Seth Berkman, who's from New York City, who would like to speak. So if we can unmute Seth, I'm sorry, Seth Berkman, we can have him ask his
Hello,
question.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I have two questions. The first one I talked about was I don't know which I'm supposed to do. I sent one at 2:37. Should I just go with that one?
Sure, you have 2 minutes. You have the floor for
Okay.
2 minutes.
Great. So I was trying to I want to just make sure the question's understood, so that'd be easier just to say it. So for both traditional community solar and also this version, the bill credits that a customer receive, are they typically applied against the supply portion of the utility bill, the distribution portion of the utility bill, or the entire bill? It looked like in your graphic it might just be the distribution portion of the bill. Does the answer to that question depend on whether the customer is a full service customer, meaning they receive their energy supply from the utility, or could they be receiving their energy supply from some third party entity? And the answer would be the same in terms of the bill credits, what they're applied against for traditional community solar and also for this program.
So I will do my best to answer those questions. Sam, thanks for joining. Thanks for asking the questions. I think you're right that the bill credits are traditionally applied against the distribution portion of the bill and will be so in this program. And that feeds into the second question. I think that's why we put them in the distribution section, is so that customers can go out and get a different option for supply. So for instance, a customer who is enrolled in a CCA program would have a different supply, and if they were not already enrolled in a community solar program, they would also be eligible for this program, and then the credits would be taken against their distribution portion of the bill.
Okay, shall we go back to the chat questions then, Casey?
Yes. So next up is a question from a Con Edison customer who has received HEAP, EAP, and WAP. How would a Con Ed customer have access to these services if possible? And then what are the potential low-income customer savings without this program? And the third question is, would the project sponsor need to meet the marketing material requirements associated with CDG?
So oh, did somebody want to go? I can answer these questions. So for a Con Ed electric customer, unfortunately, this is only being offered in National Grid utility territory, so it's only available to National Grid electric customers. I will say, as a Con Ed electric customer, you can still sign up for traditional community solar, and NYSERDA actually has a community solar map where you can find different providers in the Con Ed territory, and then be able to sign up with one of them. What was the second question, Casey?
What are the potential low-income customer savings without this program?
So I would actually, if the person who asked the question can provide some more clarity on that question, that would be really helpful. Is the question, if they didn't do this program, would they save? I think I would just need some more clarity.
Sure, that came from Neely Kelly. If you'd like to clarify, you can type in the chat or request to speak. And we can move to the next question, which is, would the project sponsor need to meet the marketing material requirements associated with CDG?
So I think to answer this question, if a project sponsor wanted to participate in this program, they would just need to register their project to participate. They are not going to have to do any marketing for this program, because these projects will then be put into a pool, and those credits will be distributed by National Grid, and National Grid will be doing all of the customer engagement and the customer education. So there's no additional marketing that a project sponsor would have to do. And I think this project sponsor might be like referring to the Inclusive Community Solar Adder, where projects that are signed up for the Inclusive Community Solar Adder, there are some very strict like marketing requirements and submission of a marketing plan to participate in that program.
Okay. Moving on to the next questions here. There's one about the proposed tariff. Does the proposed tariff includes a prohibition on participation in community choice aggregation with no exceptions? This appears to be inconsistent with the information you just provided, which is correct. And just to clarify that, they added customers who are enrolled in Rule 39.2 of the tariff CCA program, or who are otherwise enrolled directly with the CDG project, or participate in a remote net metered or remote crediting project may not participate in the ESFA program. And then the second question is, you mentioned interactions with CCA and other community solar programs, but one main concern is the limited availability of solar for these projects. It feels as though this could create competition between NYSERDA-backed solar programs. Has NYSERDA considered the impacts that this will have on new and upcoming CCA opt-out community solar programs in National Grid territory? And the third question is, would 600 megawatts cover all the eligible National Grid customers? If not, would what percent?
So I'll take a stab at the tariff one. So there is no prohibition on customers who are enrolled in CCAs participating in ESFA. I want to be very clear about that. A customer can be enrolled in a CCA and also enrolled in ESFA. A customer cannot be enrolled in two community solar projects at once. So if a customer is, say, enrolled in a CCA that also has a community solar component, that customer will have to be given a choice to remain in the community solar program that they are already in, or to drop out of that community solar program and join ESFA. They can still remain in the CCA program, as the ESFA program will have no interaction with that. Max, I believe you were going to take the second question.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jason. This is Max Joel at NYSERDA. To address the question about how we're considering other demands on the solar pipeline, and I think the question was related to CCAs, but we also have a number of what I think we're calling traditional community solar, even though something that's only a few years old. So there is a lot of potential demand on the pipeline. That demand has evolved a lot in the last year while we've been working on that program design. So as my colleague Luke mentioned, it will take a few years to onboard and then of course develop all the projects. So we are going to be working with the solar industry, the CCA providers, and National Grid to get a better sense of where the market's going, where all that demand is going. The goal here, of course, isn't to like disrupt the market or wipe out other ways of doing community solar. However, we do have a responsibility, under the CLCPA and just in general to really prioritize benefits to low-income customers. And in order to serve all low-income customers, including those who may live in areas that aren't served by CCAs or may not have really had an opportunity to enroll in community solar individually, that will take a significant amount of solar capacity. And I'm sorry, Casey, was there a third question as well?
Yes, it was, would 600 megawatts cover all the eligible National Grid customers? If not, what percent? And there's a related question. Could you explain why your goal is 600 megawatts?
Oh, thank you. I'll answer that because the two questions kind of neatly answer each other. The 600 megawatt, it's an estimate more than a goal, is what we estimated it would take to serve all of the eligible customers.
Okay, we have one participant who would like to speak. Chris McDermott, if you're still on, we'll unmute you so that you have a chance. So Chris is from AMP Energy.
Hi, folks. Thanks very much for the time. And just let me start by saying kudos to everyone for the great strides that the state is making on your low income work. I mean, I can remember 5 years ago talking about retrofitting net metered rooftops in Brooklyn for low income, and we've certainly come a long way from that. So just a couple of questions. First of all, in reading the petition, it talks about two options, there being a standard offer option and a solicitation. And how do we see that going? I mean, is there a preference of where that of what modality we're likely to use between those two options? The second question is, in either option, are you thinking of recognizing the fact that projects are going to have different levels and different types of pre-existing incentives? For the ICSA, there's different buckets depending on what type of incentives the projects already have. And thirdly, am I correct in understanding that still the game plan for the seller of the energy is that NGrid would be buying just the VETR value stack at a percentage discount? So there would still be some variability to the payment rather than a fixed rate? Those are the three questions. Thank you.
Hey, Chris, this is Luke Forrest at NYSERDA. I'm going to take a crack at answering those questions. Regarding the structure, whether it would be an administratively set percentage or an auction-based approach, we're considering both. This is something that we're hoping to get feedback from the developers and the stakeholders during this comment period. So if you have a preference for one over the other, please submit those comments in writing. You are correct that project economics vary drastically. For instance, some projects have community credit, some have community adder, some have no community adder, and that's something that we've discussed a lot internally. For instance, will a project that has a richer value stack already, that project seems like it should be able to contribute a greater percentage of the value stack towards customer bill savings than a project that received a much lower incentive. So that's something that we're considering as well. And I'm sorry, I think there was a third aspect of the question. Can you remind me what the third one was, please?
I think you answered it, and that is that the payment is a percent of the VETR credit rate rather than a fixed rate.
Yes, that's the way we're thinking. So, you know, for instance, if a project produces a certain amount of value stack credits in a certain month, a certain percentage of that would go towards the LMI off-takers. It would be pooled towards that, you know, $10 a month times 160,000 off-takers. National Grid would keep 1%, and the balance would be remitted towards the developer. But we are thinking in terms of percentages of monthly value stack credits.
Okay, so we can move to the next block of written questions. The first is, whatever the credit value does not cover is slated to be covered by solar energy equity framework. That's a 5-year source of funding. How will the funding be continued after those 5 years are up? The second question is, would there be a competitive solicitation to select the 600 megawatts of community solar projects, or how otherwise will they be chosen? How will the PPA rate the developer receives be decided by the PSC when it implements the program? And the third question is, the true up to $10 per month is funded by the Solar Energy Equity Framework. Is this true up financing available to CCAs that serve low-income consumers?
Hi, this is Max. I think I can address these. You know, I think the middle question about the solicitation for the 600 megawatts, it was pretty well covered by Luke's earlier response. But Kelly, if there's something that you know, there's kind of a detail that I'm missing, definitely drop that back in the questions. The other two questions, to clarify, the solar energy equity framework is the kind of the umbrella for the pool of funding that was approved by the Public Service Commission last May for solar programs benefiting low-income, moderate-income customers, affordable housing, and disadvantaged communities. So most of that budget is going to additional project level funding. You know, we saw some, there's also some questions in here about the inclusive community solar adder, which I can address as part of that. So, you know, that's a similar mechanism. So what would happen is if, you know, the priority is to achieve that $10 a month regular savings, any additional incentive funds, so, you know, kind of funds going in alongside the New York Sun incentive, would indeed be going in upfront alongside that New York Sun incentive. It wouldn't be a kind of an ongoing, you know, we're taking it from $8 to $10, you know, this year out of NYSERDA funds. It would be on that essentially upfront level, the same way as the New York Sun program operates. And maybe to segue into that, there's a good question about the interaction with the inclusive community solar adder. And this is also kind of the answer to the question about CCAs. So 2 weeks ago, NYSERDA launched what's called the Inclusive Community Solar Adder. This is a added incentive that projects can get to serve low and moderate income customers, as well as affordable housing and residents of disadvantaged communities. So taking really a broader lens than the expanded Solar for All program. That funding is available to both sort of traditional community solar projects that individually sign up residents. It's also available to CCAs that are automatically including their LMI residents. The amount of funding, both in total and on a sort of a per watt or per customer basis, is actually significantly higher for the inclusive community solar adder compared to what we're projecting for expanded solar for all, and that just does come back to the what we see as the very efficient economies of the expanded solar for all program, and the advantages of working with the pool of EAP customers. But as I think a couple people noted here, there's definitely while kind of EAP customers, people in the low income category may have maybe the greatest need for the program. That's certainly not. That's only a portion of low and moderate income customers, of households that can benefit from community solar. So the inclusive community solar adder is meant to support projects serving that broader pool. Now, in terms of direct interaction, low-income EAP customers who might sign up for community solar subscription for a project receiving the inclusive community solar adder, that's one of the things we're going to have to factor in when, if the program is approved, when projects are sort of ultimately procured for it. If, for example, we see really good uptake with the inclusive community solar adder, which we certainly hope and expect in National Grid, and 20% of the low-income customers, just making up number of 20% of the low-income customers in National Grid's territory are being really effectively served by those other types of projects, CCAs, community solar. We would just reduce the targets for expanded solar for all by 20%. So whatever that works out to be, instead of 600 megawatts. 480 megawatts, just using that as an example. And we'll have some flexibility there, as I think, as Mabin noted, we're expecting that multi-year rollout, and we'll have visibility pretty soon into how much uptake we'd be expecting through the inclusive community solar adder.
Great. So we can move to the next three questions. The first is this program feasible in other service territories, particularly downstate, given land constraints and the greater number of LMI customers? The second question is, are there any mechanical or engineering requirements different than traditional community solar required to participate? And the third is, if cross-border crediting is signed by the governor, is the program precluded by program design from taking credits from other utility regions?
Yeah, I can answer those questions. So the question is this program feasible in other service territories? I would love to say yes, but I am not an expert in other service territories. I think, if another utility, say a Con Ed or another one, wants to look at proposing a program like this, I think they would have to do their own evaluation. I think one of the benefits of National Grid stepping into this role is that we do have a lot of, more open space and ability to build solar in our territory. And so we are, sort of well qualified to get a large solar pooling program for low-income customers off the ground. To the third question, I think that feeds into the third question, which was, would we enroll solar from other utility territories? The answer to that question at this point is no. The complications of that are far too great, and we think that the pipeline in our territory is sufficient to cover this program, as well as, as Max mentioned, other community solar endeavors. And then Casey, can you just remind me what the second question? Oh, are there mechanical or engineering requirements? There are no additional mechanical or engineering requirements to join the program. I think the way we have wanted to design this program from the start was that it would be an easy lift for developers of solar projects to join the program, so that we can, make it easy to get into the program and get a a lot of capacity into the program, which will then feed into the bill credits for the customers. So believe that's all three, Casey.
Yes, thank you. So moving on, the next question is, the petition states National Grid will calculate projected values only once per year to distribute to customers. National Grid also describes floating credits of any surplus to be redistributed in a following year. Will National Grid make the solar developer whole for floating credits that are held over to a later year? The second question is, as the Public Utility Law Project has shown for all of New York State, EAP customers only represent a portion of eligible LMI customers. Since CCAs can provide community solar on an opt-out basis to all LMI customers, irrespective of their EAP status, it is potentially more inclusive. How will NYSERDA and National Grid address this problem? And finally, 40% of CDG credits go to large off-takers. If there is 1,000 megawatts of CDG in the pipeline and 40% of that is taken by large off-takers, doesn't this program account for 100% of what is in the pipeline?
So I can take the first one. The recalculation period is going to, we tried to design it the same way that EAP does their recalculation period. So once a year, they sort of look at how much money they have to distribute through the EAP program and recalculate the benefits, which are also given in monthly credits that are equal throughout the year. So we tried to do the same thing. So the way the process is going to work is, prior to the beginning of a particular program year, and it's going to be the same timing as the EAP program, just for continuity's sake, which I believe is right now at the program year ends at the end of March and the new program year begins April 1st. Is National Grid will look at the amount of solar capacity that we have enrolled in the program. You know, say 100 megawatts or so. Then we will estimate how much generation we expect out of that 100 megawatts for the following program year. And when we know how much, or when we estimate how much they generate, we'll estimate how much that means in terms of credits that will go into the credit pool. That is the credit pool that gets distributed amongst the customers, and we'll divide that by the number of customers in 12 months, and we'll have our monthly bill credit for the upcoming program year. The concept of floating credits comes in when we say, okay, if we estimated that we were going to have $20 million in the credit pool to distribute to customers for the upcoming program year, and we get to we go through that year and projects have, say, generated over what our estimation was, then that excess will be counted as floating credits and will be added into the credit pool for customers for the following year. Similarly, we could go into a deficit from the previous year, and we would have to account for that in the recalculation period for the following program year. I know verbally that is a little tough to digest, so please let me know if more clarification is needed. Finally, floating credits would not be applied to the developers. I think it was Luke who described that, based off of a particular project's generation in a given month, the way we're thinking of it is they will be paid, whatever the percentage is, depending on how we, do the figure out what that split is. So the developers will be paid whatever they're owed, and then the sort of concept of floating credits will only apply to the credit pool that goes to the customers. Max, I believe you had the second question.
Sure, thank you. And this was, I know I gave kind of a long multi-part answer last time, but this was one of the questions I'd seen. I was trying to address that the inclusive community solar adder is available for CCAs or kind of conventional community solar projects that are targeting low and moderate income customers, as well as customers like affordable housing, public housing authorities, that much broader group of customers in disadvantaged communities that we have the mandate to serve. So I believe that answers that question. And just quickly on the 40% question, while I'm speaking, there's not a requirement that 40% of CDG credits go to large off-takers. So the expanded solar for all design would be for projects would be fully dedicated to that. And not have like 40% of their credits go to other off-takers. Of the remaining portion of the pipeline, that would be up to the the project owner and developer how they work to distribute those credits. I know some developers pursue a largely residential customer base because that's what they what their business model is, and some always do try to get a 40% anchor large off taker, but that is not a requirement. It's a kind of an option or a flexibility in the model.
And Max, this is Luke. While we were talking, I was able to pull up our pipeline. There are actually 206 megawatts of community solar projects in National Grid pipeline, which is more than I thought.
Sorry, Luke, you got cut off there. I think you said 1,206, right?
I'm sorry, it was 1.5 gigawatts, not 1 gigawatt. I misspoke.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay, I think we've answered the questions we've seen in the chat. So if anyone has a last question or other question that hasn't been addressed, please put it into the Q&A now and let us know if you'd like to speak to it directly. Any last questions? If not, I'll turn it. Oh, is Seth request to speak again? I see. We can unmute Seth. Seth Berkman for a last comment.
Hi, yes, thank you so much for letting me get in a second question. I really appreciate it. It's possible that this question has been answered sort of obliquely through some of the things that the presenters have said, but I just want to clarify. Can you please speak to how the economics, from a developer's perspective or a project owner's perspective, how the economics of participating in the expanded Solar for All program compare to the economics of offering traditional community solar? It may be that the answer is that they should be economically indifferent because they're going to get whatever value stack they're going to get, but maybe there's a difference, and I'm not really understanding why within the queue that you said is maybe 1,000 megawatts or 1,500 megawatts. Why would a developer choose to do expanded solar for all as opposed to just going the regular, I would call it traditional community solar route? I'm curious to understand the comparative economics and if there's either a benefit to participating in expanded solar for all rate, if there's not a benefit from the developer's perspective to participating in expanded solar for all, how are you confident that you'll be able to attract that 600 megawatts that is the sort of the goal or target for this program? So thank you very much.
So I can answer that question. John, do you mind going to slide 29 in the appendix? Great. So this is an illustration of kind of how, we see the expanded solar for all kind of breakdown to be an allocation of credits versus what you traditionally see in community solar. And so, we do believe that developers will participate because developers do spend a significant amount on the acquisition and management and billing of customers. So rather than having to, spend that operational cost on doing that, they can have their project sign up, participate in the expanded Solar for All program, knowing that it will just go to essentially one off-taker who is National Grid. They don't have to worry about bringing in more customers or managing those customers. And National Grid is doing all of the customer management, acquisition, and billing on their side. So I think that's where there is a difference for the developer between doing typical community solar, traditional community solar, and expanded Solar for All.
But from a value stack perspective, they would be getting the same amount.
I'll call on Luke if he's able to answer that part of the question. I don't think I heard that part of the question.
Yeah, so the value stack is the same. The thing that's different is the project developer is going to have lower development costs because they're not doing any customer acquisition. They're just having a single off-taker, which is National Grid. So they're approaching the project with more certainty. They know they won't have to invest time or money finding a large number of subscribers.
So we did get a few more questions in the chat under the last call, so I'll go ahead and read those. The first is, do low-income advocates and organizations in the EJ community support this petition? The second one is, currently National Grid customers that participate in community solar, their solar credit appears on a line titled Other Charges and Credits. Can that be changed to community solar credit? And the third question is, could you be more specific about the funding being significantly higher for the inclusive solar adder than what is projected for this program? And I'll pause there, although I think a few more are rolling in.
All right, this is Max. I can answer those. And I also see a note on here, or saying a note from Brandon saying he asked a question. Brandon, we can't find your question earlier in the list. Apologies for that. If you could drop that back in. Sorry to ask you to repeat yourself. So, in terms of the question, do low-income advocates and organizations in the EJ community support the petition? I don't think I'd presume to speak for any of those advocates or organizations. So, I certainly, encourage the person asking the question to reach out. But we have, engaged pretty heavily with those organizations and sort of developing the petition. And since then, so, and anyone who's on the call, or, certainly I would speak to really encourage to, if there's an aspect of the petition that you want to comment on, please do, submit those public comments, and I believe included the link to do so in the presentation. The question about community solar credit. So I think this is a distinction between what's being proposed for this program versus the way kind of current conventional community solar, like where the charges are appeared and are labeled. Mike, I can't recall if you or any of your colleagues have participated in some of the CDG billing and working group sessions about this. My understanding is that it is sort of like feeding from a different aspect of the utilities billing system, but that's, you know, just what's been stated there and discussed there. So, you know, if you could maybe follow up with me or with Allison Nelligan, and we can sort of loop you back into some of the answers to those questions that we've gotten in the working group. I'd definitely be happy to do it. The question about the inclusive community solar adder. So those incentive rates are now, you know, the program was launched 2 weeks ago. Those incentive rates are published on our website. They range from 5 cents per watt for projects that had earlier secured the community credit or market transition credit, which is a, you know, kind of wonky compensation mechanism, to 10 cents additional for more recent projects with a community adder, to 20 cents additional for projects that had not secured any incentives beyond the New York Sun incentive. So those in either one of those categories, if you you know, were to calculate out how much additional funding that gives to a project or provides per customer for LMI customers, it's you know, significantly higher than you know, our projections for this program. You know, again, it's just sort of different economics. And was there another aspect of that question? Oh, and just the total funding, you know, that's also available online now. I think I'm embarrassed that I don't have this right up at my fingertips, but it's over $50 million has already been put out there for the inclusive community solar adder. You know, that already is well above what we project in additional spending for this program, for the Expand Solar for All program. And sorry, Casey, was there a last question in that group?
No, but we did get a few new ones that I can read before we close out. So the first one is, will developers lose any incentives if they choose to participate here instead of the regular community solar? The second question is related to the CLCPA and the commitment to disadvantaged communities receiving at least 35% of the benefits. So how does the $3 to $10 represent 35% of the benefits of spending on community solar? And then third question, as there's a regulatory requirement for all CDG to provide a minimum of 5% of value stack to the program, would NYSERDA be accepting bids from developers who offer up less than 5% of the value stack? And two more have just arrived. What is the estimated percent of developer costs that go to customer acquisition? And it sounds like the developer is paying for the savings that are passed on to the customer. Is that an accurate description, or is there additional funding needed through the state? Going back to the first question, in case you need a little time, it was, will developers lose any incentives if they choose to participate here instead of the regular community solar?
So for that one, the answer is no. You know, it'd be if, you know, whatever New York Sun incentive they've already secured, if they have one, they would keep. The exception there is that inclusive community solar adder that is really reserved for projects that are you know, independently or with a CCA or other mechanism signing up LMI customers. So you can, you know, both participate in that and then also apply to be in Expanded Solar for All. And I'm sorry, some of those questions were long. What was the second one, Casey?
Yeah, so the second is about the CLCPA and the 35% benefit to disadvantaged communities. So how does the $10 represent that proportion of the benefits?
Yeah, it is. If I'm understanding the question correctly, it is you know, meant to contribute to kind of that requirement on benefits for disadvantaged communities. So, you know, I know some of this is very much still in the works with the CACs, including the definitions of disadvantaged communities, and I'm not as you know, I don't think anyone on this call is as closely involved as sorry, I think someone else is unmuted. Someone else trying to so anyway, you know, whether that's calculated as a percentage of the NYSERDA funding that's you know, put into projects serving disadvantaged communities, or you know, well, I think the question is asking, like, if you calculated that as a you know, percentage, that $10 a month across all you know, 162,000 households, if you took all that and compared that to the savings going to you know, kind of market rate customers, you know, how would that compare? So that is you know, this program won't get us all the way to 35%, but it should make a major contribution, you know, kind of any way you do the calculation.
The next question was, there's a regulatory requirement for all CDG to provide a minimum of 5% of value stack to the program, would NYSERDA be accepting bids from developers who offer less than 5% of the value stack?
You know, I don't think so. That's I'm not sure if technically it would kind of fall under that, but I you know, I don't think the economics of the program really work with such a small portion of the value stack going towards the customers. But that said, you know, that rule in the net crediting requirements is, you know, focused on making sure that benefits are delivered to the customer. That's kind of in contrast to the program designed for expanded solar for all, where you know, we are, and I think there were a couple questions about this, and Luke gave a pretty detailed answer about it. You know, we are expecting different projects to come in with different economics. That doesn't change the fact that each customer will get that you know, that targeted steady $10 a month.
Okay, and what is the estimated percent of developer costs that go to customer acquisition?
I don't have that at my fingertips. I know it's a real significant amount, and that's going to vary based on developer. And additionally, the cost of recruiting LMI off-takers is going to be higher than recruiting market rate off-takers.
Okay, and it sounds, the last written question was, it sounds like the developer is paying for the savings that are passed on to the customer. Is that an accurate description, or is there additional funding needed through the state?
So the model is that I think we have a couple of questions about this. You know, by reducing the cost to the developer, that allows more savings to be passed on to the customer through the program. So that's kind of the intention. We're anticipating that, you know, most, if not all of the projects will have New York Sun incentives. And while we didn't estimate that this will be definitely necessary, you know, we did note in the petition that if kind of additional adder funding is needed to make the economics work in a way that customers get that $10 a month, we would apply it. But I think as I discussed previously, we think that'll be a pretty modest amount, and again on like a per watt or per customer basis, much smaller than either the regular New York Sun incentives or the adders offered for community solar earlier in the program, or the inclusive community solar adder.
Trouble getting my video going. John, I think Brandon Maharaj had one last question for the group, and I think that's going to probably wrap up our questions. So if we can unmute Brandon, and you have the floor for up to 2 minutes.
Yeah, hi everyone. I just wanted to re-ask the question that was asked earlier, that I presented earlier. The complete question was, how does the $3 to $10, and I say handout, represent 35% of the benefits of spending on community solar, when CCAs offer the ability to fund community programs through customer acquisition fees that can then provide real opportunities to our disenfranchised communities to grow through improving housing, job training, and creating entrepreneurship opportunities?
Yeah, I think the answer remains the same. The CLCPA requirement is, it's actually that we target 40% and at a minimum achieve 35% benefits for clean energy investments. So, I think that was less of a question than a comment, but, the savings that low-income customers would receive from this program would contribute to driving that benefit. Again, it wouldn't be even for New York Sun, let alone all of NYSERDA, all of the state clean energy investments, we wouldn't achieve that kind of statewide, portfolio-wide requirement just through this program. But we do think it'll make a pretty significant contribution. As will the inclusion of low and moderate income customers served by CCAs through opt-out community solar. So I think we've touched on this a few times, but NYSERDA has taken a position in support of CCAs and opt-out community solar. We've tried to design this program so that in cases where CCAs are able to better serve their low-income residents, they just would. There's kind of no advantage that the expanded Solar for All program derives from having more customers if those customers could be better served by CCAs or sort of individual community solar subscriptions. So certainly all of those things will be counted towards NYSERDA's obligation under the CLCPA. The inclusive community solar adder we've talked about a bit. That will all contribute to the CLCPA requirements, because that will, I think as the question pointed out, help serve a lot of low and moderate income customers in disadvantaged communities, residents as well. So that may not have been, again, it was more of a comment than a question, but that is kind of how we're thinking about the CLCPA disadvantaged communities requirement relative to this program.
I think we're going to wrap up the Q&A with that. I want to really thank people for hanging in there all this time. At the top of our participation, we had some 90 people from municipalities, from EJ groups, social services, from industry organizations and developers, contractors. So a really good representation, and I think really good questions. I want to really also commend the respondents from NYSERDA and National Grid for thinking on their toes and responding to the questions in that way. So really appreciate that. and thank the Hester team. And with that, I'll turn it back to NYSERDA to just close us out.
All right, thank you so much, Wendy. So John, if you don't mind just going back to the slide about public comments. I think it's the slide previous before this. So I think I would just like to close. Thank you so much, everybody, for participating in this program or participating in this webinar. And I said before, this program is open for public comment. So if you want to submit a public comment, you have until August 22nd. The link is right here, but we will also be distributing the link in an email within 5 to 7 business days. And public comments are instrumental in the decision of, in the Public Service Commission's decision on this program, but also any program. And then I think the last thing I would say is if you have any questions for us, you can always reach out to us at communitysolar@nyserda.ny.gov. If somebody wants to just put that in the chat for everyone to see. But when we send out our email to all the registered attendees, we'll also include that email address as well. So with that, I'd like to thank everybody for attending today and have a great rest of your Thursday.